So what do you measure when you're looking to grow your business? And here's what you need to pay attention to. It's a difference between what we call leading indicators and lagging indicators. Now, when we're working with entrepreneurs, business owners, executive teams, what we notice is that there's typically two elements when it comes to business. There's the strategy and then there's the execution, right? So if you've heard any of my previous episodes, I talk about life is really about two things. It's decisions and actions. And business is the same thing. And essentially decisions, it makes up your strategy, because your strategy is simply your approach, and your approach is how you are making decisions towards a particular vision or goal. So in business, it's really strategy and execution. And what we find is that most businesses have an okay or potentially a subpar strategy. It's enough to get some traction. But what we find that's actually very prevalent is that the majority of organizations have subpar and poor execution. And one of the main reasons is because of the measurements or lack of, or they're measuring the wrong things. So here's what you need to pay attention to. Now, there's a big difference between leading versus lagging measurements. And this is the big difference. Essentially, lagging elements, those are the numbers that most people take a look at when it comes to, okay, where are we at in terms of results? So if you're looking at your organization as a whole, it could be your revenue, it could be your sales numbers, whatever you're measuring. Maybe it's the bottom line expenses. Those are typically the end results. Those are the lagging measures. And a lot of the times, the reason why we call it lagging is because it is lagging. It is the result of what you do or the activities that it takes to get those results. And those activities, if you measure those are what we call leading indicators. And this is one-on-one when it comes to business. And so most executives, most CEOs understand this, but in majority of organizations, this is not implemented correctly, because the default nature of human beings is to take a look at lagging indicators rather than leading indicators, because leading indicators is a behavioral aspect for the most part. And a lot of the times, the behavioral aspect requires people to be held accountable, not held accountable in the lagging indicators, but the leading indicators can be a little bit more mysterious. So for example, if you're taking a look at your sales revenues, which are your lagging indicators, your leading indicators could be, okay, so how many conversations are you having? How many people are in the pipeline? What's the quality of the people in the pipeline? How many conversations have you had with those individuals? Okay, what's the potential of these deals closing? Those are leading indicators. And if you measure the appropriate things there, and here's my recommendation, is just take a look at the top 3 leading indicators that lead to the results. If you take a look, and I wouldn't go past 5, because once you get 5, then it becomes way too hard to measure. It becomes convoluted. Things fall through the cracks. And so what you're taking a look at, the top 3 things that you could do to increase the result. So in sales, it could be, okay, how many people are you speaking to? How many new prospects? How many follow-up conversations are you having? It could be how many outbound calls are you doing, cold calls, whatever it is that gets you sales in your business. What are the top 3 things? Those, or how many proposals you're putting in front of people, right? That's a key element to sales. So those are the things that you should be measuring and keeping track of. And also, you can say compensating people on as well. Yes, you do want to compensate people on the results. That's important. But you also want to compensate them on the behavior, because the behavior leads to the results. It's like working out. You're not going to lose weight. You're not going to jump on the scale and lose 10 pounds if you haven't hit the gym or if you haven't had a calorie deficit. So, those things you got to measure what you're actually doing to get to the end result in the first place. Now, this becomes a bigger challenge because as your organization grows, right, there's potentially more leading indicators that you need to pay attention to. So you have to be really careful. You have to be really cognizant that as you go up the ladder and you get to the executive dashboard, you're still measuring the key 3 to 5 things. And I've seen a lot of executive dashboards, and a lot of them are scary because it has way too much information. And when people are getting together to have conversations about what needs to change strategically, see, this is how it comes back to your strategy now, is You can't change your strategy if you don't know what you need to change because you haven't measured appropriately. Or if you're measuring too many things, it becomes too many variables. That's why it's very important to keep your leading indicators to a less number because it reduces the number of variables and more complexity. I keep saying this, the more complexity that you put into an organization, the lower the execution. And again, this is a natural phenomenon for bigger and bigger corporations because the tendency is to believe that the more things we measure, the more we're going to be on top of things. But that's not the case at all. In fact, what we see, it's a complete opposite. The more things you measure, the more things fall through the cracks. So it may not be working for you. Simplicity is always the best route when it comes to results, your strategy, and execution. So let's just simplify this. Leading indicators are a better measurement than your lagging indicators. Now, you have to measure both because you definitely need to know what the end result is because that's going to give you a gauge in terms of where you are at. But more importantly, you have to focus on the activities, the processes, the steps that it takes to get to those results. And those are your leading indicators. If you focus on those elements, you can't help but grow your business.